There is a tiny object inside your phone, your car, and every AI on Earth. The computer chip, the most complex thing humanity builds, and almost all of the best ones come from a single, fragile island. Taiwan, one earthquake-prone island, the size of a small country, makes more than 90% of the world's most advanced chips, and the machine that makes them possible is built by just one company on Earth. This is the quiet war over who controls thought itself. A modern chip starts as ordinary sand and ends as a fingernail-sized tile holding tens of billions of switches, each 1,000s of times thinner than a human hair. Nothing else we build comes close to this precision. To carve features that small, you need light so fine it barely exists in nature, focused by mirrors so smooth that if one were the size of a country, its biggest bump would be a fraction of a millimeter. This is where the whole world narrows to one supplier. That supplier is ASML, a Dutch company most people have never heard of. It makes the only machines on Earth that can print the most advanced chips, using a process called extreme ultraviolet lithography. No one else can build them. Not America, not China, not anyone. Each machine costs over $400 million, weighs as much as 2 jumbo jets, contains hundreds of thousands of parts, and ships in 40 containers. It is arguably the most complicated machine humanity has ever made. To make that light, a droplet of molten tin is blasted by a powerful laser 50,000 times a second. It sounds insane because it is. For years, most experts thought it would never work at all. No single country can make one alone. The light source draws on American research. The optics come from Germany, the lasers, valves, and software from a web of firms across the free world. The chip is the most global product ever built. Owning the machine is only half the story. Someone still has to run it at superhuman precision, day and night. And nobody does that like Taiwan's TSMC, the company that makes chips for Apple, Nvidia, and almost every name you know. TSMC makes roughly 90% of the world's most advanced chips. For the cutting-edge processors that run artificial intelligence, its share is close to total. If TSMC stopped tomorrow, the modern economy would seize within weeks. Put it on a chart, and it looks almost absurd. Taiwan makes around 90% of the world's most advanced chips. South Korea, a sliver. China, despite pouring in hundreds of billions, still barely 1 or 2%. One island, one clear winner. Put the whole supply chain onto one map, and you see just how few places really matter. A handful of dots hold the entire modern world together. One giant dot in Taiwan, TSMC, making around 90% of the best chips. One in the Netherlands, ASML, the only company that can build the machine. Korea and Japan beside them. America trying to catch up. And China, for all its size, still a tiny dot. Squeeze any one of these points and the world stops. This dominance is so complete it has a name. The Silicon Shield. The idea that Taiwan is so vital to the world that no one, not even China, would dare destroy it. The island's safety and its chip factories have become the same thing. You cannot simply build another TSMC. It took the company 40 years, hundreds of billions of dollars, and an army of the world's best engineers. Even with unlimited money, a rival would need a decade just to reach where TSMC already is. The whole planet's supply of leading chips flows through a handful of buildings in a few square miles, sitting on one of the world's most dangerous fault lines, both geological and political. Never has so much of the world depended on so few factories. America saw the danger and the leverage. Starting in 2022, it used its grip on chip technology as a weapon, banning the sale of the most advanced chips and machines to China, trying to freeze its rival a generation behind. The logic was simple. China could not make its own EUV machines, and ASML was ordered not to sell them there. Cut off the one machine, and you cut off the future. A choke point strategy aimed at the narrowest point in the entire supply chain. The controls kept tightening. First the advanced chip bans, then the block on EUV machines. At the end of 2025, the special status that let TSMC and Samsung freely equip their factories inside China expired. From 2026, they must ask Washington for a license every single year. China's answer was to pour hundreds of billions into building its own chip industry from scratch. It made real progress on older chips, but on the cutting edge, without EUV, its best factories still run at a tiny fraction of the West's capacity. By 2026, one estimate put China's share of the most advanced chip production at just 1 to 2% of the West's. The gap for now was not closing, it was widening. And there is a darker layer. Reports suggest that if China ever invaded Taiwan, the machines themselves could be remotely disabled and the fabs rendered useless. The world's most valuable factories might be built to self-destruct rather than be captured. All of this matters more now than ever because of one word: intelligence. Every leap in artificial intelligence is really a leap in chips. Whoever controls the most advanced chips controls the speed of AI itself. Demand for these chips is now exploding beyond anything the industry has ever seen. In 2026, the world will pour over $1 trillion into data centers, the vast warehouses of computers that train artificial intelligence. More than 600 billion of that on AI alone. These are not ordinary buildings. A single rack of NVIDIA's newest chips can draw more power than a whole street of homes, 3 to 4 times the last generation. The bottleneck is no longer just making the chips, it is finding the electricity to run them. That is a story for its own episode. And a second wave of demand is arriving on 2 legs: humanoid robots. Tesla, Figure, and China's Unitree are racing to mass-produce machines that walk, see, and work, and every one of them needs a powerful AI chip for a brain. The scale is staggering. Chinese firms already make around 90% of the world's humanoid robots, and global shipments could jump 700% in a single year. Wall Street thinks this becomes a $5 trillion market. Every robot, another hungry customer for advanced chips. The data centers and the robots. 2 forces so vast they may decide who leads the next century, and 2 stories we will return to in their own episodes very soon. All of it built on the tiny chip at the heart of this war. These chips don't just run phones. They run fighter jets, missiles, satellites, and the AI models that may define the next century. Fall behind in chips, and you fall behind in everything at once. The numbers are staggering. The chipmaker NVIDIA briefly became the most valuable company on Earth, worth trillions, built entirely on chips made by TSMC on machines made by ASML. 3 companies, 1 fragile chain. So the West is scrambling to spread the risk. America, Europe, and Japan are spending hundreds of billions to lure fabs onto their own soil. TSMC is building plants in Arizona and Germany, but the most advanced work, for now, stays home in Taiwan. But there is one place in this war where Europe isn't behind. It's ahead of everyone: the Netherlands. Because the single machine that makes advanced chips possible, the EUV machine, is built by just one Dutch company, ASML. No ASML, no cutting-edge chips anywhere on Earth. And it isn't only Dutch. Inside every one of those machines sit mirrors made by Zeiss of Germany, the smoothest objects humanity has ever built. In Belgium, a research hub called IMEC quietly designs the chips of the future. Europe holds some of the most irreplaceable links in the entire chain. And yet, here is Europe's paradox. It builds the one machine the whole world needs, but it cannot make the most advanced chips itself. It has no cutting-edge fab, nothing printing the very smallest chips. Europe exports the tool and imports the result. So Europe is spending big. Its CHIPS Act pledges 43 billion euros to double its share of the world's chips to 20% by 2030. But its own auditors are blunt. Without an advanced factory, Europe may barely scrape past 12%. The ambition is huge. The gap is bigger. By 2026, that scramble had a staggering price tag. TSMC committed another $100 billion to new factories in Arizona, pushing its total American investment toward $250 billion. The most advanced chip-making on Earth is slowly being copied onto US soil. Demand is running even faster than the factories. TSMC's newest 2-nanometer chips are already sold out into 2028, with wait times stretching close to 2 years. The world simply cannot make these fast enough, and the political grip only tightened. Chipmakers running factories inside China must now win a fresh American license every single year, with no guarantee of renewal. The choke point became a lever that can be pulled or released on demand, and catching up is brutally slow. A single fab takes years to build and costs more than $20 billion. You cannot conjure this industry with money alone. It takes decades of accumulated, hard-won skill. Pattern repeats from the battery and rare earth wars in its purest form. It was never about owning the raw silicon. It is about who can do the almost impossible work of turning sand into intelligence at scale without fail. One island, one machine, a few dozen buildings, and an entire civilization now balanced on top of them, hoping the fault lines hold. Next time on Future F-Frame, the fight to control the sun itself, and how one country came to make almost every solar panel on Earth. Subscribe so you don't miss it.